Here we are. We got the first trailer. So let's take a look.
Honestly, my mom won't say it, but we're completely broke. And the only thing that's left in our name is this creepy old farmhouse our grandfather left us in the middle of nowhere.
So first up, right? It's the house Ray was left by his parents. He was born there, you know. That's where he took out the second or third mortgage to start up the original Ghostbusters and rent the firehouse.
Why'd you bring me up here?
Entertainment value?
What is that?
I don't know.
Nice, classic green glow. The trail of the ghost coming up out of the mine shaft here looks a lot like the special effects used in Ghostbusters 2016, which isn't all bad. It certainly looks nice. It looks rendered well. No complaints there.
Somehow, a town that isn't anywhere near a tectonic plate, that has no fault lines, no fracking, no loud music even, is shaking on a daily basis.
Okay, so for one, the element of mystery, what's going on in this small town? Why is this happening? Paul Rudd's character, we already know that he witnessed the cross rip of 1984. He was there, that is to say, when Stay Puft Gozer summoned Stay Puft as the form of the Destructor, and he witnessed this back in the 80s. So he grew up, he's apparently about, our age, roughly, reaching 40, somewhere in that neighborhood. And he's a seismologist, come out to this little town to check out what's going on. This doesn't make any sense. So he's come out here and he took a job teaching at the school, it appears. Got to mention in this scene right here where they're running to duck and cover inside the house, you can't help but not notice the books that are stacked from floor to ceiling in a single column, which of course is one of many great nods, I think, in this trailer to the original Ghostbusters, walking through the basement of the New York Public Library where they come across the columns of books. And Ray says something along the lines of symmetrical book stacking. And Peter, with his dry retort, says, "You're right, Ray, no human being would stack books like this." So that's a nice little thing. Was that just there, or did they just find that? Did they wake up that morning and walk downstairs and find that? Like, what? Who did it? What is this? It's weird. It's a nod to the original.
Hey, remember that one summer we died at our table?
Puzzle box.
In my living room.
Killer replica.
So she just looks great. I mean, I don't know about the Ray's house thing. To me, this just screams Egon Spengler. She's got that look. She's got that dry facial expression, very serious, not joking around with any of it. Replica of what?
A replica of what?
A ghost trap?
I love how Paul Rudd looks at them in the trailer. He looks at them like, you mean you don't know what this is? And we get the sense from Jason Reitman that the events of 1984 and 1989, we're not sure yet if that's the case. But he did in the beginning say that this was a direct sequel to the first two movies. So we're just going to assume that the events of Vigo the Carpathian and everything at the Manhattan Museum of Art, that took place. People are coming up with all kinds of theories and even complaints about how the car, Ecto-1, that we saw right from the beginning, from the teaser trailer last year, is the wrong one. Why is it Ecto-1 and not Ecto-1A? To me, I don't care. Who's to say that Ecto-1A wasn't necessarily a refit? Maybe they built a second one. That doesn't really matter. Those kind of details don't bother me. The original Ecto-1 is the one that I want to see rolling through the small town of Somerville going on in this film right here.
There hasn't been a ghost sighting in 30 years. New York in the 80s, it's like The Walking Dead. Your dad never mentioned this to you?
Again, fan service all over the place. So far the props look identical to what was used in the original films. That's fantastic. The refit of the props for 2016. Nothing looked as good as it did. Nothing. The traps, the PKE meter, which made zero sense at all, that they didn't even know what it was going to do. They designed and built it. That's a different story. The Ecto 1, nothing in that movie looked as good. It was all techy and fun, but the gear that was designed for the original and used in the sequel, and even the stuff that they added, very little stuff, but the Geigen meter and that tool that Ray uses down when he's dangling under Fifth Avenue in the pneumatic transit system and scooping up that slime. These just have this homemade, awesome look to them that Ghostbusters 2016 didn't even come close to updating or improving on. They just kind of went off on their own thing. Everything we're seeing here is legit. And again, fan service galore. We see actual footage from 1984 Ghostbusters right here. And we're to believe that they opened up the vault and the film itself will have unused footage from the original and footage from Ghostbusters 1 and 2 that nobody has ever seen before. And maybe some of it, a great way to do this in 2019 and in 2020 when this movie comes out, is to use the internet and YouTube and so on and so forth to pull up that footage and revive it. We also are being told that because, as it was just said, it's been 30 years since there's been a ghost sighting. They closed the portal. Ghostbusters took care of it. They had 2 incidents in the 80s, and then that was it. They became defunct. There wasn't a big problem. There wasn't an issue going on. They weren't needed anymore. And consequently, over the past 30 years, we get the impression that a lot of people in the United States and maybe around the world even don't believe that these things happened, that this is a myth, which is a great angle to take on this with the grandkids 30 years later. It's fantastic.
It's just my mom.
Probably find out what happens to her dad. There she is with the PKE meter. Can't get 5 seconds in this without fan service. She finds the shed, which drops her down clearly into some underground storage area, not unlike the Ghostbusters, to recognize that the technology that they created was very dangerous and people couldn't be playing around with this stuff. Proton pack is not a toy. But also that they may need it again. Maybe they weren't totally convinced that they weren't going to be needed in some facet again in the future. So dismantling and destroying the equipment wasn't an option. Storing it out of sight, out of mind, out here in Oklahoma, burying it, might have been a really good option for them 25 or 30 years earlier. And then it just sat. So she finds this doorway in, and then it's just nothing but fan service to have a shot of her sliding down a pole like the fireman's pole from Ghostbusters Firehouse in Manhattan. That's very cool. And now, of course, she's holding the PKE meter, the PKE meter used in the films, and the sounds of it just bring back the ultimate in nostalgia for the original films. It's great.
My mom says we're just here to pick through the rubble of his life.
My mom says we're just here to pick through the rubble of his life as the camera pans over Egon's collection of spores, molds, and fungus. This clearly is where Egon was. Unless Egon moved his whole collection of all of his stuff into storage at Ray's maintenance, this very well could be the case. This could be Ray Stantz's property that maybe they moved all their equipment to. They used this for storage. Hey, we've got this place outside of the city. I don't think in the original Ghostbusters we got the impression that maybe it was in upstate New York or something, but I think that was just kind of implied, not even implied, but more so we just came to that conclusion because they were in New York City. Maybe he was talking about Oklahoma the whole time. And she's running her hand over the proton pack and looking around this room. Just clearly, this is where they dumped all their gear.
Who are you?
I don't know what the deal is with Paul Rudd holding a trap and some kind of ecto glow coming up out of the trap. I don't really know. We've never seen anything like that before. Once the trap is closed, it's contained, is what we've seen before. Not trying to nitpick or dig too deep or throw any insults towards the trailer at all. To me, that shot could have just as easily been him holding it, looking at it, going, wait a minute, and then a little bit of the external blue electrical arcs run across it, and he drops that. That would have made a little bit more sense to me, but let's stay open to what's going on. Then he says, "Who are you?" As she pulls back a bunch of hanging Ghostbusters flight suits, and we see the name tag. Goes really quick, so if you missed it, don't worry about it. You got to pause it to take a closer look. It says Spangler. Spangler is the jumpsuit that she pulls to. Now, maybe it's all 4. There's 4 hanging there. So we can assume that that's all 4 of their jumpsuits, although we know that they had many more than just 4. But in any case, it says Spangler. That's also nodding towards the fact that she and her brother, their family, are the kids and the grandkids of Egon Spangler. We can't go 3 seconds without something amazing in this trailer. Audio aside, once we get to this shot, road closed ahead, and this mine, if you take a close look at the archway that they're walking towards, it says Shandor Mining Co., established 1927. So Shandor, of course, Ivo Shandor was the architect who built Dana Barrett's apartment building in the 1984 Ghostbusters. He was referenced when they were in the jail cell talking about it. Ivo Shandor was either a certified wacko or a genius. He was a Gozer worshiper, is what he was. And further in the 2009 video game, we find that Ivo Shandor had done things all over Manhattan and possibly other areas. And basically all of his projects in the occult were based on trying to open these gateways to another dimension to allow Gozer to come into our dimension, into our world. So Shandor Mining Company out here in Oklahoma, really good chance that this is key to what's going on in this town of Somerville. Yeah, probably not just mining underground if Ivo Shandor put his name on this company. Something else is going on down there causing these tremors. This also closes the book on who the villain is, of who the antagonist, of what's going on in Jason Reitman's film. Gozer's coming back, people, and it's not going to be pretty.
Call it long.
Spielberg, E.T. written all over it. Love it.
I believe that everything happens for a reason.
So, of course, the vocal overdub that we're hearing there is Bill Murray as Peter Venkman, line from the original film. I know a couple people who watched this had felt that was out of place. They weren't sure what it was. They didn't even really recognize his voice, but the true, I don't want to say true Ghostbusters fans, but the big fans and the ones who have seen the movies recently and adore the movies, I think all of us the majority of those who watched this trailer instantly recognized Peter Venkman's voice and can place it right there on the steps at Columbia University. The next line that comes out of there, we were destined to get thrown out of this dump, right? As he and Dan Aykroyd, Peter and Ray Stantz are sharing the flask, and Ray is wondering, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Nobody will touch us now. They wouldn't touch us with a 10-meter cattle prod. He feels like their potential career has been ruined because they've been kicked out of this university, and he doesn't want to work in the private sector, and this is what kicks off these three scientists to kind of going into business for themselves. And those are the words. That's the audio from it. That is it. He kind of sings that line. I've always loved that part of the original movie, and what Elmer Bernstein did with the score at that point. That, Bill Murray just kind of sang this line as an improv, and then Elmer Bernstein incorporated the score going on behind it, and we get elements of that right here. It's just absolute fan service and sinking our feet into concrete that there's no joke here. There's no denying this is full on a love letter to Ghostbusters and ties everything right back into the first two films. A lot just flew by the screen right there. I'll skip most of it, but that last moment we see Paul Rudd in his car, and yeah, that's the leg and the growl of a terror dog. Gozer's back. The portal's been opened, and as we know from Ghostbusters, there's two things that Gozer needs to enter our dimension and really cross through the barrier, cross through the breach. And in order to do this, Gozer is going to need a keymaster and a gatekeeper. And as we know from Ghostbusters, Louis Tully was the keymaster, and Dana Barrett became the gatekeeper. So what I see right here, this terror dog jumps down on Paul Rudd's car. Mr. Gooberstein, something like that is the character name. Yeah, kind of looks like he's going to be the new keymaster.
Come on, darling.
We get that great introduction that mimics the original debut and first look of Ecto-1 from Ghostbusters when the doors open and you see just the front end license plate. We get that same thing here with the rusted out Ecto-1 as the barn door opens up. Just terrific. Doing donuts in the field.
It has a gunner seat?
So that gunner seat is something that's pulling directly from all of the real Ghostbusters cartoon show and comic books that came after it. And I love the way that flips around, that suicide door flips open, and the seat that we already know is backwards, right behind Shotgun, facing the rear, and it comes out and spins around. The pack is attached to the back of it. She's strapped into it. It flips around. It just automatically deploys her out there with whatever button they accidentally hit or whatever. Totally cool. I'm open to that. That just fits right in. And then we go right into Ecto-1 chasing through this small town, chasing a ghost, firing the neutrino wand. And the only thing that is odd about visually what I'm seeing here, which is not a complaint at all, but the orange and yellow main portion of the stream is surrounded by a purple electrical kind of aspect to it, whereas in the originals that was always blue. I don't know what that's all about. I don't really care. It looks gorgeous. There could be a lot of reasons why there's a slight color change there. Again, I'm not here to nitpick this thing to the ground. It looks gorgeous. I'm just pointing out that it's a new color scheme, but it looks great. Love the practical effects clearly built into those, the sparks, the explosions, people diving out of the way. Just how cool is it to see Ecto One running down Main Street, USA, chasing some Slimer type looking ghost? I don't think that's Slimer. No, I think that's a different ghost, Slimer type ghost. There are a lot of there's a whole almanac in a lot of these books that break down the different ghosts. We have some that look like people that were dead people, like the librarian ghost, Eleanor Twitty. And then we've got these blob ghosts and monster-looking ghosts, and that's part of what's fun about Ghostbusters is it's not trying to ground itself in total reality. It is a little bit cartoony. It's a little bit playful. It's scary. It's funny. It's all of these things. That's what made it so brilliant to begin with, and made us all fall in love with it. And obviously, there's elements of that going on here as well. And every one of those bullet points is checked off just by taking a look at this trailer. And then, of course, sure, Afterlife, great. You could have called it Ghostbusters 3. I'd be fine with that. Afterlife is great. I mean, it's fitting, right? Especially when you think about Harold Ramis. Of course, the afterlife, the paranormal, fits right in. But even more so when you're talking about one of the main characters who the actor has died in real life. Harold Ramis died in 2014. Now we're talking about not only just maybe his kids or other of the original Ghostbusters children, but their grandchildren. That's great with me. And one thing that I had mentioned before about the 2016 Ghostbusters was that I do have an issue when films change their titles after they're released. Without going too deep into it, Ghostbusters 2016 was released in theaters as Ghostbusters. It was just called Ghostbusters. It was a hard reboot, and that was the name of the film. And I maybe it was from the pushback of fans or something. At some point between the release of the film in theaters and the release on video, they changed the name of it to Ghostbusters Answer the Call. And that never sat right with me. That was a weird thing. Like, when you changed the name of the movie, when it came out, I was like, why? What is this? What was the name of the movie? I went to see a different movie. This is this one. Whatever. It's kind of stupid. But my point is, this movie has all they have branded it as leading up to now is Ghostbusters 2020. And it's a direct sequel. So we could call it Ghostbusters 3, Ghostbusters 2020, the year it's coming out. That's fine. This trailer gives us the title. It's called Ghostbusters Afterlife. That's what the film is. We might still yet get the No Ghost logo holding up the three fingers there. That might happen. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. We could just get that logo with Afterlife under it. It doesn't matter. But the film is called Afterlife, and that fits. That works for me. Yeah. I mean, what else is there to say? This just looks great. It looks like they're taking it very seriously. Clearly, it's right in the vein of the others. I love how they're they're pulling this out of New York. They're changing the setting. That's great with me. I think that's part of what is needed to make it fresh, to give it something new. I love the idea of the Ghostbusters in small town, rural America. It reminds me of some real Ghostbusters episodes. There's a few episodes, although I can't recall the names, the titles of those episodes right now. But there are some episodes, and there's in some of the comic books and stuff, they go off into other parts of the United States. They go to New Orleans. They go all over the place. They go international. But there's some pretty cool episodes where they go into small towns, and they're busting ghosts in farms and open fields and stuff. And it just feels right. putting another Ghostbusters film in Times Square in Manhattan, uh, it's I think it's a good call to leave the city behind. I think it's a really good call. It gives it something very fresh instead of just regurgitating the same thing over and over again. So very happy about everything I'm seeing here. It tied together with Evo Shandor. It just Gozer. This is great. This is great. You couldn't really ask for much more as a fan of the franchise and of the story. Yeah, the voices have been heard, and it looks like the crew's back together, and they're putting together something new, something fresh, passing the torch. Of course, we know that everybody from the originals, save Rick Moranis, has been confirmed is going to be in the film. We got everybody: Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Ernie Hudson, Sigourney Weaver, Annie Potts. Now, I think also the shot of the terror dog landing on Paul Rudd's car, also, like I said, he's going to be the new Keymaster. I'm telling you right now, there's my prediction for the film. He will be the Keymaster. And I think that also confirms that Rick Moranis is not going to be in this movie. I mean, he walked away from Hollywood a long time ago for very good reasons. There's a little bit of a sad story back there, but happy ending in a lot of ways for him. Encourage you to check that out if you're curious what happened to Rick Moranis. It's pretty easy to find that out. I won't take this moment to really break that down, but in a very rare interview that he did not too long ago after Ghostbusters 2016 came out, he did say, yes, I was approached about that movie, and his response was, look, that was something I did 25 years ago. Why would I want to come out of retirement and go back and do something I already did? That was something from the past. And he also was quoted back in the day saying, Ghostbusters, this is it. This is the event of the week. This should be a TV show. We should be making hour episodes and be doing this every week. You sit down every Thursday night. It's Ghostbusters. So, we know that he loved Ghostbusters back then in the 80s and into the 90s, and he wanted to do a lot more of it. But so much time passed, and lives change and people change. I'm telling you right now, Rick Moranis is not coming out of retirement for this, and I think this trailer shows us also with just that subtle clue that we're not going to see Rick Moranis, and that's fine. He should do what he wants to do and live his life the way he wants to. We don't need Louis Tully to make this a real Ghostbusters story. It will be great to see Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Ernie Hudson back in the suits again. Pay some homage to Harold Ramis and the Egon Spengler character. But they're not going to be the focal point of this film. They're going to be a side note. They're going to be a small part of this. The Paul Rudd character, the guy who was a kid in the 80s who witnessed this, who knows about Ghostbusters tech, who recognizes it immediately, who's a scientist, is interested in this. He's going to be a really cool character. I think we're all going to really enjoy his mentorship type role to these kids. And we know Sigourney Weaver and Annie Potts are going to be in there. I can't really see exactly how that's going to fit. I don't know. It doesn't matter. We don't need to see it now. We'll see it in July 10th, 2020. But based on the minds that are behind this, it's a slam dunk. It looks really, really good. And tell you what, my whole family will be there opening night to check this out. That's all I got for you right now. I'm not going to go on and on and on. So thanks for joining us tonight. Us as in, I guess, me and the collectibles and the whatever. Be good to one another.